is A to Z with Mark Zinno, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, where today I tell you we've been here before. Welcome in. We are live here on this Wednesday as we get you set for Game 2 of the NLDS between the Braves and Phillies and a whole lot more here on this Wednesday edition. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On ATL. Of course, I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Lots to do here. We will get to the Braves. We'll start off there in just a moment. Some Falcons news and notes to get to as they get set for the 49ers. NFL once again jockeying around. The Atlanta Hawks will play a preseason game tonight that we will discuss, and how the Draymond Green situation relates to the Atlanta Hawks. We'll do all that coming up here on this Wednesday edition. Yesterday, of course, was not the start that the Atlanta Braves wanted. I don't think anybody is anywhere near panicking, and it was one of those games where it was kind of hard to figure out, because if I would have told you that the Braves would have hit 2 home runs and the Phillies would have hit none, you would have said that the Braves were going to win that game. That's kind of the way it went down. The Phillies didn't hit a single long ball and yet somehow pulled out a 7-6 win. Now, in fairness, one of those home runs from Matt Olson was kind of like a garbage time home run, if you will, a 3-run shot in the ninth that brought it to within 1 run. But nonetheless, you're looking at a team in a scenario here where they're too veteran and too experienced to panic. But it is a little bit disconcerting that the Phillies got 5 2-out base hits in the game. The Braves couldn't buy one at all. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I told you so by any stretch of the imagination, but I did say that I didn't like the Phillies matchup. I felt like it was much more of a coin flip than taking on the Cardinals. You can't do anything about that. The Cardinals aren't involved in this anymore, but that was just prior to the playoffs starting and wondering who was a better matchup for the Braves. The Cardinals were easily the better matchup because they're not as strong as a team as the Phillies are. And that lineup, like we talked about yesterday for Philadelphia, from 1 through 9 can hit the baseball. So the other part of yesterday that was a little bit disconcerting, obviously, was Max Fried didn't have his best stuff. All you could say is, guys, that's going to happen. I think his next time out, he'll bounce back fine, provided he gets it. He should get it. But, the next time he gets the ball, I don't think there's any reservations that he will go out and look like his old self. I still have more reservations about Kyle Wright looking like himself and the 21-game winner that he was this year, because, as I've said repeatedly, nobody's numbers other than Strider were really good against the Phillies across the board. And if you look this year, or overall, I should say, in his career against the Phillies, Kyle Wright is 2-3 with a 3.86 ERA. His WHIP is pretty solid at 1.02. He's given up just 13 earned runs in 30 and a third innings. He has struck out 23, but he has walked 15. The walks are a little bit, disconcerting from that standpoint. It's crazy because if you look at his stats this year against the Phillies, he is 2-1, but he did walk 7 batters in 19 innings. He struck out 15. His strikeout to walk ratio this year 2-1, but overall in his career, his strikeout to walk ratio against the Phillies is just 1.5. And it's kind of low. You want that to be a little bit better. And Kyle Wright has to put together one of those starts that you absolutely need to sort of turn the momentum around. I don't even think the Braves are out of it if they lose here, especially if Spencer Strider, guys, my ace in the hole, my guy, is starting in Game 3. We still don't know if he is or he isn't. At this point in time, they haven't said. They'll get an off day again tomorrow before they travel. So, Major League Baseball wanted to do this thing. Everybody had the Game 1 on the same night. Now they'll stagger them a little bit to keep baseball on every single night. So I think the Yankees and Indians series, Guardians, put a coin in the jar. My bad. Yankees and Guardians are off tonight, along with, I think, the Dodgers and Padres. And I think you get the other 2 series going, and then they'll flip-flop. But regardless, I'm not even worried about Game 2. I think the Braves are talented enough and good enough to be able to come back and win 3 straight. It's not ideal by any stretch of the imagination. It's not a situation that they want to be in, but they absolutely have to, absolutely can't be counted out no matter what, even if they go down 0-2. They're too experienced. I mean, I go back to all of the Yankees teams after they started winning World Series that got down 0-1 in a series or got down 0-2 and then came back in a 5-game series and won the whole thing. Like, I mean, that's the hallmark of championship teams, and the Braves have that. Nobody is there is panicking. They know there's another day. They know there's another game that they can go out and play and atone for yesterday's mishaps. So, but it is going to come down to starting pitching. It is going to come down to getting timely hitting, and honestly, it's going to be, the usual suspects are going to be there, but you're going to need Orlando Arcia, or I mean, yesterday it was Travis d'Arnaud, which was great, but you're going to need some of those lesser guys to get some big hits along the way. Um, and go look around at the rest of the games that were played last night. Um, you know, again, Harrison Bader hits a home run for the Yankees to tie it up. It wasn't Judge. It wasn't Stanton. It wasn't. I mean, it was those role playing guys are going to have to step up and make something happen. We don't have the lineup yet as we record this show today, but I'm curious to see if Snitker does any tinkering with the lineup, not only from a matchup standpoint, but also from a you know also from a standpoint of, hey, we have better matchups with these guys against Zach Wheeler. So is Zach Wheeler going, and Wheeler was pretty good against the Braves this year. But it's not like they don't know how to hit him. It's not like they haven't seen him enough between his time with the Mets and everything else that there's any reason to believe that Zach Wheeler is going to be able to overpower the Braves. Could he have that start where absolutely he looks fantastic? Yeah, but this is too good of a lineup here to really, for me to even really concern myself with that the Braves won't be able to score. And I'm just looking back at Wheeler's game log. He went 6 2/3, gave up 8 hits, 2 runs, struck out 10. This was back on May 23rd. Phillies won that game 7-3. That was his only appearance against the Braves this year. I'm sorry. He had a second one in June 28th. He went 6 1/3, gave up 3 runs, struck out 8 in a no decision. So he's been decent against the Braves this year, all things considered. But again, I don't have many concerns. This team is too professional. So there is that. You look across the other series. I'll make one other note about the other series, man. The Seattle Mariners, who I thought were a very underrated pick to go win the American League, they're done after losing that game. They don't come back from that. You don't come back from that in a short series. The way that they blew a 7-run lead yesterday, and you know the fashion that it happened in, no way, no way. I mean, it wasn't 7 runs. I'm sorry, it was 3 runs, well, 4 runs rather. But still, it just you can't recover from that mentally. Not against a team like the Astros. You had to put them away yesterday, and you didn't do it. And I don't even want to second guess Scott Cervais if you didn't watch. He brought in his ace starter, Robbie Ray, with 2 outs in the ninth to face Yordan Alvarez, who promptly hit a ball 440 feet into the upper deck and won with a 3-run homer. So yeah, it was bad. It was bad. They gave up 5 runs over the course of the 8th and the ninth inning to blow a 4-run lead, and I don't know if they recover. I genuinely don't. Padres and Yankees and Dodgers rather held serve. They look like superior teams to this point, but obviously you still got some more games left to play, so don't need to get too far ahead of ourselves. And I was incorrect. It's Atlanta Philadelphia today. It's all NL today, and then AL tomorrow. So Atlanta Philly, Dodgers Padres, and then the NL takes a day off, and the AL goes back on, and then they'll flip flop the rest of the way through the end of the series. So, all right, that's it for the Braves. Again, I don't think anybody's too worried at this point in time or panicking. We will get to some big picture looks of the Falcons coming up here in a moment. First, a word from our friends at betonline.net, your number one online source for odds, lines, and games. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find your favorite sports and events all right there at betonline.net. There are news and reviews of every league, NFL, college football in full swing, Major League Baseball playoffs here, NHL underway, NBA getting underway, combat sports, esports, even golf. It's all right there. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They've got you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. Bet online, where the game starts. I've often have implored Falcons fans to continue to take a 30,000-foot view with this team. And I've done so because I want everybody to understand that just because you win a couple of games doesn't really necessarily escape what you're supposed to be and who you are. The Falcons, over the course of the first 3 weeks, statistically, not only did they have a great running game, but their defense wasn't anywhere near as bad as anybody had thought. And statistically, now you're starting to see the numbers wane a little bit. The Falcons had some sacks early on. Didn't get one last. They did well. The Grady Jarrett one doesn't count because it was a penalty, but nonetheless, you get the point. They have 8 sacks, which is tied for like 24th in the league, 25th in the league. It's not inside the bottom five, but it's just outside the bottom five. Their yardage, they're giving up 393 yards per game. It's not inside the bottom five, it's just outside the bottom five. And the problem is that over the course of the next 2 games, I think you're going to see those defensive numbers start to look like what we thought they would look like this year. Oh, the defense is going to be terrible. In reality, the defense situationally has played pretty good. They've gotten off the field in certain key junctions in the game. They've made stops at certain key junctions that they've needed to. Aside from week 1 against the Saints, they haven't really had, any major meltdowns or collapses. They held Tom Brady, who averaged 35 points a game against the Falcons in his career. They held him pretty much in check for 4 quarters, enough so that the offense could get back in it and theoretically give themselves a chance to win the game. So there are clear improvements, what we've seen with this team. Obviously, again, the run game is the biggest improvement that we've seen on this team. Why? Because, well, it actually works. As I said yesterday, the Falcons have an identity. The identity is being able to run the football. That's due to Arthur Smith sort of forcing that ideology down everybody's throats and everybody in the organization buying in. I think that is a big part of exactly what we are watching unfold here with the Falcons. I'm not going to get too caught up in some of the numbers. I maybe it's unfair for me to nitpick the numbers that I like versus the ones that I don't in order to tell the story or the narrative of this year's Atlanta Falcons team. But I'm trying to extrapolate the things that are good that this team can build on and this franchise can build on going forward, as opposed to focusing on, oh, well, it's the same old stuff. Because I don't think it is the same old stuff. I think a lot of things have changed. I think there's a certain amount of this isn't the same old stuff that we need to focus on. I think it's more of there is reason for optimism in the big picture going forward as soon as they start to make, some roster moves that are, ones that can impact this franchise. In other words, when they add next year with players that are worthwhile, they'll have a chance to start to be better. But I think we're all more focused on the offense than the defense. I would like to see some more progression out of the defense, but it's not going to be easy over the course of the next 2 games. The 49ers, and they're going to go on the road to the Bengals in late October, which weather could play an issue in that game as well. But if the Falcons are a running team, it doesn't hurt them necessarily as much. I have a feeling this game could be one of the uglier ones for the Falcons. The way the 49ers have played and the way that they came out and beat the Panthers, and I know they're on back-to-back road games, and they offensively they are clicking on all cylinders right now, and the defense is too good for any offense to have a big measure of success against them. I mean, if you look at the 49ers over the last couple of weeks, what they did to the Rams on Monday night, and then a short week flying east. Now they stayed east this week. I think they went in West Virginia. But other than the embarrassing loss to the Broncos, where Jimmy Garoppolo just was on his first full week, and you could tell the offense was a little disjointed. Other than that, and that's a really good defense Denver has. They've looked really good offensively in their other 3 games, and the challenge this week will be on the defense. As much as people will focus on what the Falcons offense can do against San Fran, the challenge this week is going to be on the defense, not to give up 30 to the Niners. I think that's something that everybody's starting to forget about a little bit. Want to pivot real quick to the Atlanta Hawks. They're going to take on the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight in Cleveland in a preseason game. I think they got one or two more preseason games before they start the regular season. I don't know how many games they have left. Thinking about it now, I'm not sure. But season doesn't start till November, so they clearly have to have more than one or two preseason games. Anyway, what I wanted to focus on was this team's offseason, comparatively speaking to last year, and where they are going. I look at what happened in Golden State with Draymond Green and, the punching of the teammate. And then you had Steve Kerr say yesterday, this is the biggest crisis that team has ever faced. Well, I guess to a certain extent, if that's the biggest crisis, you're doing okay. But on the other hand, it's one of those things where um, for him to say that, because there was tumultuousness with his players, sort of indicates where, how much that could rip apart a championship caliber team. This offseason has been very quiet, all things considered. Prior and leading up to the draft and the free agency period, when all the rumors were that the Hawks were moving on from John Collins, and the roster was going to be overhauled and this, that, and the other. Like, there was a lot of noise. It settled down. It got quiet quick, and it appears that everybody has gone back to work and that this team is in a good situation right now. That's comforting. It makes me at least believe that whatever has gone on this offseason, and whether it's Nate McMillan or the addition of Dejounte Murray or what, that they have figured out a way to sort of find a spot where it appears, again, because we haven't heard anything we don't know, but it appears that basketball has been the sole focus. And I think that's a good thing. That calming effect, I think, matters. I think it's something that absolutely you should want for your team during the off season. Um, I ultimately believe this team should be better record wise during the regular season than last year's. I stress record wise because I don't know that they're good enough yet to even get to the fourth seed in the East and host a playoff series. I think that for me is sort of the measure of improvement this year. Their win total was set at 43 and a half or 45 and a half. Sorry. Last year they won 43. Is Dejounte Murray good enough for 3 more wins? I would think so. That plus Trae Young being off ball a little bit more should get you into the high 40s. I think so. Feels like it's really, a possibility. But I also feel good about the fact that everything has quieted down and everything now is just about this team being better on the basketball court. That may serve them well because there's a lot of noise surrounding a lot of teams this offseason, whether it's Golden State, whether it's Boston. There's just always some sort of NBA noise out there, and it's been relatively quiet for the Hawks. And I think that ultimately is a very, very good thing. All right, I want to shift to the NFL, but now it's time for Shuffles of Wisdom.
Brace yourselves, because it's time for the Shovel of Wisdom.
You know how we do it every day. We got to set somebody straight for saying or doing something stupid. So on my Twitter account, at Mark Zinno, and just use the hashtag Shovel of Wisdom. And today my shovel goes to the New York Giants. Well, why? Why would you give a shovel to your own team, Mark? Well, because they left their punter in London. Why did they leave their punter in London? Punter did not return with the team. They would say they were aware of the issue prior to the trip. They expect him to be back and haven't worked out any punters as a contingency. Oh, but I don't know. It's like Wednesday. The game is on Sunday. Gillen, nicknamed the Scottish Hammer because he's a native of Inverness, Scotland, came to the United States as a teenager, and he came here on a NATO visa with his father. Well, he never changed that to a work visa when he entered the NFL. So yeah, now U.S. Customs is like, hey, buddy, I don't care what you do for a living. Get back on the boat and get over there. How you not going to fix this? Like, how did you sign him knowing this year that you were going to London and not be like, hey, it is Scotty, hi, Jamie, did you get your passport fixed? Why am I doing an Irish accent? I don't know. Anyway, but probably need a punter on Sunday. Might have to be an emergency situation. Call somebody, anybody. All right. According to a source, the NFL is going to mull roughing the passer penalties after the season. According to someone on the competition committee who wishes to remain anonymous, that they're going to discuss roughing the passer penalties after the season. The AP reported earlier Tuesday, topic also be discussed next week when the NFL owners meet in New York, because the league was not planning in-season rule changes. Of course, the competition committee, for those who don't know, comprised of 6 team owners, executives, 4 head coaches. They make most of the recommendations for rule changes. Teams also can propose rule changes and require 3/4 of the league to pass and voted on by owners. Now, both Chris Jones and Grady Jarrett have basically said on the record publicly that we'd like roughing the passer penalties to be reviewed. Well, the committee member who wished to remain anonymous said, quote, the hard part is that because we have no real standard for what roughing the passer looks like, we'll always get a wide range of what the referee decides is and isn't a foul. Let's pause there. We do know what roughing the passer looks like. We do know what violent hits are. And we do know that optically, neither Tom Brady nor Patrick Mahomes was roughed at all. In fact, both of those players did exactly what you're taught to do, to not throw the quarterback to the ground or to not land with all of your weight on top of the quarterback. They both did exactly what you were taught. So, yeah, we do know what it looks like. And you do have a real standard. This goes back to a catch. We had no real standard, I suppose, for what a catch was, but we all knew we saw one when it happened. And the rest of America did yet, complete the process BS. Uh, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, my eyes tell me that's a catch. Everybody thinks it's a catch, and the way you wrote the rule means it's not. This anonymous individual continued, quote, the only way to correct that is to have a review process for personal fouls. We may even have to do that for offensive pass interference and defensive pass interference. These are huge fouls that impact and can change the game when the foul is or isn't called. I don't know if the powers that be would want that review process for personal fouls or not, though. You don't need a review process. Stop complicating things that are very, very simple. All you need to do is throw a challenge flag, and all you need to do is send it up to a booth. Did he throw the quarterback to the ground? The answer for Grady Jarrett, no, because the way the buzzer comes down and communicates with the referee to tell him is the same way the referee communicates back with them. I saw him throw him to a ground. That's why I threw the flag. Okay. Hey, Jerome Boger, he didn't actually throw him, because to throw him, you have to let go of him, and he never did that. That's not a penalty. Okay. After further review, there is no foul on the play for roughing the passer. Problem solved. Would you like me to repeat the process for, the review process for what happened to Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones? I'm sorry, Derek Carr and Chris Jones. Here we go. Well, I saw him land with his entire body weight forcefully on the quarterback. Nope, he actually braced his hand on the ground, and the other hand was holding the ball, so he physically could not put all his weight on him. That's not a foul. After further review, there is no foul for roughing the passer. I just solved the whole process for you. You're making this more difficult than it needs to be, NFL. For what reason, I can't understand. Why you still want to go down this road and make it this difficult is beyond me. But here we are. Doesn't need to be this hard. Really, really doesn't. You don't need a review process for things that you have written down and clearly delineated. Much like when you have clearly delineated that an illegal forward pass is when the entire quarterback's body is over the line. So if he's got a toe on the line, guess what? He's still technically behind the line, and it's not a legal forward pass. A review fixes that. Simple. Onside kick. The kicking team cannot recover the ball or touch the ball before 10 yards. We have a review. Did they touch the ball before 10 yards? Yes or no? Yes, they did. They can't recover it. Re-kick it, 5-yard penalty. What are we doing? You're making this harder than it needs to be. You're genuinely making this harder than it needs to be. And I just don't understand why. That's it. I've literally just solved the review process. You're welcome, NFL. I hope you were paying attention. All right. As we turn to game 2 here for the Braves, let's hope we take a break on Thursday and we come back for Thursday's show with the series tied at 1. We will look towards college football this weekend. Some huge, huge matchups that I want to get into as well. Georgia and Vandy. So much more to do here the rest of this week. Jam-packed time of year. And thank you guys for being part of A to Z. Make sure that you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On ATL. I'm at Mark Zinno. Don't forget to download the Roku TV app. Check us out on Roku TV, Amazon Fire Stick, whatever it is. We are there every single day. We appreciate the love and the support. Love and support. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Tongue Tied Wednesday here. Back tomorrow. You guys have a great day. Don't take any crap from anybody. See you.